Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. Today's video is going to have a rather unusual comp featured where I end up clicking linked sledges very early on into melters. Now whether or not it turns out fine we'll have to see, but I mean it was such a original board state that I felt like I had to feature it. We'll be up against Galnerius, who I think sits around 2.1k, and yeah, we start out with some sledges here and some crawlers. I'm a speed specialist, I believe. Yes, I am. So I will be trying to kind of play aggressively in this scenario. And my opponent is a saber-tooth specialist starting out with sledges as well as void eyes. Now, in terms of pushing, especially with this new setup, I don't really necessarily want to be pushing into the anti-armor cannon. However, I could still try to do so, because my opponent likely wouldn't expect it, right? They would expect me to start pushing in on, well, the side that has no turrets whatsoever, rather than try and push into a turret that is supposed to be pretty decent into sledgehammers. The thing is, you can just put a crawler, like, right up front, and the anti-armor cannon won't be doing too much. So there's two different kind of ideas to this, right? Either I go for the obvious push into an empty board, or at least an empty board building wise, or I push into his right side where he does have a Chungus, but you know, I can try and perhaps take it down quick. I will be placing some marksmen here. Main reason being is I do need some DPS, and looks like I will be trying to push into that left side where there is no turret. Looks like I have tried to kind of play this somewhat defensively though. One marksman on the right. I wasn't too sure where he would be pushing me. And I thought, well, if he does go asymmetrical, he should also be pushing into my empty side. So we are defending at least a little bit. Marksman will get some lock-ons. We should be unfavored here. My opponent has some void eyes, which typically tend to do quite well. Although I say that, a marksman has managed to find some very good locks, getting rid of a lot of the void eyes here, but still, his small tower, his smungus, as we could say, is, yeah, really crushing my board right now. And looks like we will end up losing round one. Kind of to be expected. I think we did all right. We killed more void eyes than I expected, but we will be losing some damage here. Round number two, and this is where an interesting card shows up. There's Quick TP, which is very good. There's Wasp Swarm, which of course on round 2 is always worth picking if your opponent doesn't have like triple Fang in the backline. And even Advanced Shield Device could be pickable, but I was considering Assault Stormcaller. I think this card is very good, actually, but I very rarely get to play it. And I felt like, you know what, let's give it a try. I tend to kind of try out stuff a little bit more when there is, you know, a little bit of an MMR gap. So I said, you know, 2.1k. I'm currently sitting at around 2.35 thousand MMR. So, you know, that's when I kind of try to go for some unusual plays. Now, with this in mind, this is a strong turn. However, it does leave my rear completely open. And so, yeah, the Wasp here does get picked up. I was just kind of gambling, you know, maybe he doesn't pick it, maybe he puts it defensively. He ends up going for it, which is a logical move. I was just kind of willing to get down my deployments rather than kind of have to put down some missiles. That would have been an option, though. Go for double missile and one Stormcaller plus a Chaff. That would have been just fine. Instead, I kind of greed it, and, well, I do pay the price, as we will be taking some damage here with that 9-second debuff. It does mean, though, that I have 2 powerful deployments on the board already. Well, we lose a fair amount of hit points here, you know, losing about 800. But, I mean, I should be fine, at least moving forward. Round number 3, and we get a whole bunch of unit reinforcements. Now, the strongest thing here just seems to be Phoenix. Does well into basically all of the other options. And, yeah, it's nice to have a fast flying unit, especially when you're pushing into the opponent. So I don't have to think too long about that. It also covers my flank here in case he tries to go for a Phoenix. And this one can go slightly further up to try and help out DPSing against those sledgehammers. Pick up another Stormcaller, and I do try to kind of aim that towards his turrets, his walls, and whatever units may be in the middle. Of course, I still have that marksman on the right side. Right now, he's not pressuring me too much. He could try to maybe pick up the Phoenix and start pushing on this side. He does go for the Phoenix, but I have a marksman covering. But yeah, this diagonal is currently weak. I am aware of it. Could maybe just level up a tower if I want to. That wouldn't be a bad move. Let's see what the opponent goes for. He does put a Sabertooth on the right side. He's a Sabertooth specialist after all. Looks like I greed again, going for attack enhancement here. So I could be punished, but sometimes you kind of have to just roll the dice as to, you know, where you want your units to be. Opponent puts the Phoenixes very far back, all the way in the back. Perhaps afraid of some type of sledge flank. I do really like to do those. So I don't know if he's watched me play before, but yeah, that could be why he's putting the units all the way back there in case of some deep flanks. But it does mean that his board is, you know, slightly disconnected from the main fight. At least the Phoenixes will have to travel for a tiny amount of time before they're engaged. Stormcallers here will do well. This time around, we don't get debuffed. Marksman gets a lock onto the Saber, but, well, it's still a level 1 Sabertooth, and a level 1 Marksman doesn't exactly DPS a ton. So we'll have to see if it can even take it down. Looks like it's just about not going to be able to, yeah. Barely the Sabertooth surviving there. Left side, a bit more even, but my Phoenixes will end up biting the dust, getting ever so slightly in front of my Assault Stormcallers. And yeah, as my marksman will get taken out as well, it'll be another round loss, it seems. So not a great start for me, right? I went for a bit of a gamble on round 2, got debuffed, and yeah, now we're paying the price as it seems like the setup still doesn't really work that well. Now, of course, I'm a speed specialist. He's a Sabertooth specialist. He did get, you know, his power spike this turn, but still down to 2.5k as we just, you know, get out of the early game. Not ideal. This round, I mean, nothing that I really like. Could go Smart Marksman, maybe, but I don't really think it's worth picking. Nuke this early on. Could go for it. It is a little bit scary, I guess, but again, I can't be shielding here. I don't think it makes sense. I need all the money that I have, and more, we're going to be using it. I'll go for Sledgehammers with Mech Rage, as my Shaft Gear currently is basically just Sledgehammers, so kind of speeding up that Shaft Gear speed should be very nice. Oil gets put down. Opponent picks up a Vulcan, which is a very sensible move against my army. I guess it's not ideal into the Stormcallers, but it's very good against the Crawlers and the Sledgehammers. At least, you know, at the low levels, and if he decides to click Scorch. Now, on the right side, we are kind of expanding our board, going more Sledgehammers. It is nice to go wide because it prevents you from getting completely wrecked by these type of plays, right? With oil, at least part of your army will still be alive. Maybe they can pressure, get a tower debuff, and at least soften the blow if you happen to, you know, really hurt after a spell round. Now, let's see. I do go for a missile. I was trying to just get rid of the tower that was there, but it already got sold. And now we'll have to see how this goes. Ideally, I would like this oil to get ignited this round. Perhaps a little bit later than early, but it would be nice if it's gone, because if I have to deal with this 2 turns in a row, well, now I'm getting slowed, and the next turn I'm getting lit on fire, which, you know, neither situation really benefits me in any way, shape, or form. We're doing pretty well on the right side, though, getting rid of that Sabertooth pretty quickly. Crawlers on the tower, maybe even able to get that debuff. And while the Vulcan is doing a decent job, it just doesn't quite seem to get close to the oil. Sledgehammers nearly going to die, but my Stormcallers, again, they are pretty useful against these bigger giants. And yeah, okay, well, that's not great. Well, it is great because we won the round, but then the oil stayed. Which means that surely this turn it will get lit on fire. A little bit tricky. Heavy armor available here, very good item. Again, a bunch of big red spells. I guess that would have been another line for him. Kind of try and pick up a nuke or pick up a storm. And he does, in fact, pick up a storm. So that is very, very scary. I don't think I will be playing against, or I would be trying to cover for this. Because I wasn't really expecting it. Again, it's round 5. And even if I do cover against it, I don't think it makes a massive difference. And I don't want to be kind of putting myself in a spot where I commit to, let's say, 2 bubbles, still pay that 200, lose both bubbles, and still lose the round as well because of the lightning storm. I'd rather lose the round and, have at least some economic advantage over my opponent that I can then hopefully use the round after when there's no more spell. Now, we do beacon kind of outside of the oil because I was expecting him to light it, and, well, with range enhancement being picked up on the Vulcan, he probably will be able to. It's a very scary board still, though. I mean, look at the difference here. Like, this is looking very neat. Sledgehammers, Void Eyes, Phoenixes, whole bunch of crawlers, some Fangs in there even. And then I just have this ragtag army of Mech Rage Sledgehammers, most of them level 1. I got some crawlers in there. I have some Phoenixes. I have Assault Stormcallers as well. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to kind of pressure the right side a bit more. And, yeah, really hammer on his weak side, since I know the oil is there. And on top of that, we now also have to deal with this storm. Opponent even flanks me with a crawler. I think we should be fine against that. Not entirely sure. I mean, not all of my crawlers went that way, but the marksman is able to at least chip away at his crawlers. A whole bunch of my sledges end up dying here. Level 2 sledgehammers with the heavy armor. They're tanky, but they will still get toasted. And as I don't have that many Stormcallers left, this looks to be a disastrous round. Yeah, marksman even goes down, so I'll lose my tower as well. 2 Vulcans left alive, 2 Phoenixes as well. I mean, we're looking at, well over 1,000 damage here. 1,200 perhaps. And, oof, that is going to hurt. Suddenly, I find myself down to 1,000 hit points, and I can't really afford any more losses like that, or the game will be over. Enhancement module shows up, and I just decide to skip. There's no use for it here. Enhancement module is very good, and, well, as you might have seen, I do like to play carry boat, which would be very good with this particular comp, but I don't think I have the time to get in there. I really need to try and invest into my sledgehammers. I felt like I had to do something a bit crazy here to at least stay in the game and gain some tempo back. So I'm thinking, well, I expect him to go for Scorching Fire on his Vulcan, because that would make the most sense. It's very good against the sledgehammers. So how do I counter that? I don't run armor, and even if I did, level 1 Vulcan versus level 1 armor tends to just go the Vulcan's way. But I do run damage sharing, and I do run field maintenance. Now, I'm going to decide to go damage sharing here because it's the tech that provides the most tankiness, right? You get 120% bonus HP, which means that effectively your sledgehammers will be more than a full level tankier. And on top of that, they will be sharing the damage. It's a risky play because, well, now my opponent will know it's coming and I still need to deal 3k damage, but I felt like it was the play that would allow me to at least stay in this. We also put a whole bunch of missiles in the back, as I am going to need to deal with that Wasp Swarm. We put a Fang down on top of things, and, well, let's see how this goes. Overload has been picked up on the Stormcallers because I want to fire faster, and even with Assault Mode and Overload, the Sledgehammers will stay in front by 15 meters. So my Stormcallers should be fine here. Opponent goes for Raidens, which is not a bad response into Sledgehammer, but it's not exactly the best into linked sledges. The damage on Raiden is not that high, only 5k. So you can see that these tanks, even at level 1, already have more hit points than the Raiden can deal. On top of course, spreading it evenly across the link. So we're doing pretty well on the left side. Right side managed to get a tower, and left side will follow suit. However, Raiden is very good at scamming air units. Lucky for me, I still have 2 Phoenixes left, and at 120 meters, they will sit well in behind my other units. However, we now need to make our way across. Now, normally, Stormcallers are very slow, and my Phoenixes likely would have gotten sniped by the Raiden. In fact, one of them still does, but look at these guys, 19 meters a second on the storms because of that assault. And look at it go. I don't even know where it is trying to head towards. I think it wants to go towards the Wasp for some reason. But yeah, that looks really comical, and it is so incredibly fast that we do manage to win the round. It's not a big one though, but we're still in it at the very least. I had to loan for this, keep in mind. So, round number 7. And we have to deal with Raidens, and I'm also kind of afraid of whatever response he might go for into my Sledgehammers. There is a Farseer on offer, and it just seemed like the best response. It does pretty decent into Wasp if he picks it up, and it should help me, you know, clear the air units on top of things. And it could provide me with photon emission. I expected him to keep going into Raiden and perhaps go something like electromagnetic shot. So I wanted to grab multiple Farseers and go for photon coating to make my army even tankier and protect it against stuff like EMP. Now, to do that, I needed money, and so I'm gonna decide to sell my level 3 Farseer and just replace it with the level 1, which is slightly cheaper, and it will leave me with enough money to go for that photon emission. Now, I am being a bit greedy here because the Raiden is scary, and I could potentially get scammed with my Phoenixes not having range, but with the addition of the Farseer, I felt like I might be in an okay spot. Now, I completely read this situation wrong, and my opponent just abandons the Raiden idea and now goes for double Melter with range. And that's where things get scary. Linked Sledge is very good if you can play it for one turn as a bit of a gut shot and your opponent, you know, is caught off guard. Linked Sledge is a lot less good when your opponent has multiple rounds to try and deal with it. Now, Melter is, of course, one of the classic counters. The good thing for me is my sledge board is pretty spread out. So I don't actually have like one massive link where all of the sledges can, you know, die as soon as the Melter locks onto, you know, a single sledgehammer. But still, you can see here we're losing a good amount of them. Lucky for me, they are again a bit spread out. So a couple of sledge packs do still manage to get through. They block the Vulcans from shooting at anything useful, and my Stormcallers are still doing a very good job here of dealing with those giants. I guess that's the one saving grace in this game. The Stormcallers are very powerful into the big slow units on this board. And it's sketchy for sure, but we managed to take out all of the air units, and suddenly things are not looking too bad. I mean, maybe I can win in, you know, 1 round or 2 rounds if things go well. Of course, it likely will get worse and worse as the rounds progress, but yeah, I felt like this should be okay. Galneria is deciding to skip here. There is an Acid Blast, but luckily we already have the Photon Coating. So yeah, we won't have to deal with that spell, and that's why he skips it. For me, nothing too interesting in here. Wasp is kind of what I want to go for. To try and distract the Melter, because you know, even though my Sledgehammers are spread out, they still will struggle against the Melter, and I don't want to lose a big pack of them right at round start. So going for Wasps, I think, is the most sensible thing to do. Now, I briefly misclicked, I think, on the Crawlers, which is why you briefly saw that Replicate flash. Of course, I don't want any Crawler techs. I'm up against Vulcans, so they're not going to do anything. But yeah, immediate loan, temp range, temp speed, and here come the triple Wasps. I'm going to try and line them up somewhat with the Melters if I can. Make sure that they're going to be shooting at the Wasps instead of insta-locking my Sledgehammers. Also picking up some Sledgehammer levels wherever I can. And again, I am being a bit greedy here by not ranging my Phoenixes. But I felt like, you know, when you're on the back foot, you can't have all of the luxury in the world and play around everything. I'm willing to gamble here that I'll be able to take out enough of his Raidens without him, you know, scamming my air units and me losing as a result of things. Do go for the oil. I was hoping that maybe I could set that on fire as he had it back off cooldown as well. I only land a tiny portion of it. I don't think it does too much. He will light his on fire too. Lucky for me though, most of my chaff is kind of either aerial in the form of the Wasps, or it's, you know, a ground-based tank in the form of those linked sledges. Now the Melters are doing a decent job again of getting rid of some stuff. Those Raidens also very, very scary. But maybe, just maybe, we can get through this. Oof. That fork, though, it does increase the scam potential as my Phoenixes almost go down. And now my Farseer is doing a good job with that tower debuff, potentially even taking down the enemy air units. Yeah, that Raiden is super low on hit points, so we'll get taken down with the low-level Phoenix. I think this Mitre might be able to clutch things up, especially with the tower debuff coming through. Yep. Well, not quite. I think the shield somehow blocked it, but we're still alive. We're still alive. So let's send it to round 9 and see if we can somehow turn this around. Round number 9, nothing too interesting here. Could go for maybe Armored Hounds if I really want to, but into Fork Raiden, it doesn't seem like that's a good play. So I just pick up the Typhoon, don't think too long about it, I sell it, and then I have some more money available to make a different type of play. Now, the main thing I was afraid of here is, again, losing to the Raidens, and I felt like I needed some really solid DPS to also try to chunk and kill those giants in a quicker fashion. Because of that, I decided to go for double tech on the Phoenixes, which I have not teched before. I was kind of neglecting them and being very grateful that they were doing as well as they did without any investment. But finally, here comes the investment. We go triple blue Phoenix with double tech, range and charge shot, and that should allow us to, 1, stay a bit safer, and 2, have a lot more damage to deal with these tanky units on the enemy board. I am missiling my flank every single round, by the way, with these crawlers, and now my opponent has picked up loose formation, which has gotten nerfed. I haven't had the chance to play into it that much. I did test it very briefly when the patch came out, and I decided that it wasn't really worth running anymore, but I haven't faced it in you know, proper games, so this will be a good test. It is a bit scary still, because my brain is wired to... yeah, expect a normal loose formation round against Sledgehammers, but we managed to missile, I think, 3 crawler packs here at the start. So let's see how well my Sledgehammers can do. Now again, you can see here, the Vulcans instantly lock on to my Sledgehammers, whereas the Melters somehow get stuck on a couple of my crawlers, some Wasps that are in there, and we're actually doing quite well. I mean, now the Sledgehammer packs die, but we've managed to get closer, we've managed to kill all the chaff, and I still have those charge shot birds in the back, completely destroying all of the tanky units on my opponent's board, and that means we do manage to pick up a win in, yeah, a very unusual game here, right? We have Sledgehammers, we have Assault Stormcallers with Overload on the line, pushing in. We have Photon Coating Farseers, and then the Phoenixes to boot. I have never really had a game quite like this, I must admit, where I click Linked Sledge very early on, and we still managed to pull through, despite my opponent going for, you know, quite a few units that you would expect to do quite well into them. We've got the Fork Raidens, you've got the Melters, but yeah, the tankiness alone and kind of the awkward locks of the Vulcans here, plus, you know, the DPS that our Stormcallers were outputting and our Phoenixes on the final round, meant that we still were able to push through. So, yeah, kind of a cool one. A different line my opponent could have gone for, I guess, earlier on, was to build some Scorpions, the other unit that starts with an S. Yeah, Scorpions very, very good into linked sledges. Would it have been better than the Melter? I'm not entirely sure. And of course, Melter can shoot up as well, so there's that. You could try and invest more into Raiden, but again, it's not a like super high DPS unit, so maybe it would have struggled. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, if you liked this video, leave a thumbs up. Let me know down below what you think of Linked Sledge and this particular game. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.